Let's talk bananas. Not the fruit itself, but the chaos it unleashed. You wouldn't think a simple banana could topple governments, but it did. Central America became a playground for corporate greed, all thanks to this yellow fruit. It's a story of power, corruption, and the intoxicating allure of profit. We're talking about a time when American companies ruled the fruit trade. They saw Central America as their own personal farm, and the king of this fruit empire, the United Fruit Company. This wasn't just business, it was a hostile takeover, a slow and deliberate strangling of entire nations. The company's reach went way beyond bananas. They controlled the railroads, the ports, even the communication lines. Imagine a giant octopus, tentacles wrapped around every aspect of life. That was the United Fruit Company in Central America. The irony is that most people back then probably didn't even know where their bananas came from. Out of sight, out of mind. But the impact of this fruit trade was anything but subtle. It left a scar on Central America that's still visible today. The United Fruit Company, or UFC as we'll call them, weren't your friendly neighborhood grocers. They were sharks in the water, smelling blood in the form of cheap land and exploitable labor. By the early 1900s, they were the undisputed kings of the banana trade. Imagine this, you're a small farmer in Central America. You've got your land, your crops, your way of life. Then the UFC shows up. They offer you a deal you can't refuse, mostly because they're holding a gun to your head. Suddenly, you're working for them, growing their bananas on your own land. The UFC didn't just control the land, they controlled the governments. They had politicians in their pockets, judges on their payroll. If a government dared to challenge them, well, let's just say accidents tended to happen. Coups, assassinations, you name it. And the people? They were caught in the middle, forced to work for a pittance, living in fear of the company's wrath. This wasn't just business. It was economic colonialism at its worst. It was the birth of the Banana Republic. The term might sound comical, but there was nothing funny about it. It represented the absolute power of corporations over entire nations. The UFC, with their bananas, had rewritten the rules of the game, and the stakes were higher than you could imagine. The story of bananas in Central America is not just about fruit, it's about politics, power and exploitation. By the early 20th century, the United Fruit Company had become a dominant force, controlling vast territories and influencing governments. This control came at a great cost to local communities and workers, who faced harsh conditions and little pay. The company's practices led to widespread resentment and, eventually, political upheaval. The consequences of United Fruit's dominance were far-reaching. Economies became dependent on a single crop, leading to instability. Social inequalities deepened as wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few. Environmental damage from monoculture practices left lasting scars on the land. These factors contributed to decades of political unrest and conflict in the region. Today we can see echoes of the past in modern agricultural practices. Large corporations continue to wield significant influence over local economies and governments. Issues of labor exploitation and environmental degradation persist. The lessons from the history of bananas in Central America remind us of the need for sustainable and equitable practices in our global food systems. The tale of bananas in Central America is a powerful reminder of the complex interplay between agriculture, economics, and politics. It shows us how the pursuit of profit can lead to exploitation and long-term consequences for entire regions. By understanding this history, we can work towards a more just and sustainable future for all.